Welcome, everyone, to another TNS short where we discuss a single topic in a quick manner because nothing else has really happened in the last week. And today's topic that we're going to be discussing is a new announcement that Hires has made about a topic that we already talked a bit about, what we would do ourselves in previous episodes, which is sort of the international scene for the Smite esports scene, essentially. And the announcement is basically that they're going to be having something called the Smite Global Series, which is going to be the international scene, the new one. And yeah, Sabo, tell us a bit about it.
Well, first off, the Smite Global Series will finally be managed by ESL, which is the Esports League. This league pretty much oversees a lot of the other esports games. A lot of fighting games are managed by them. I think Counter-Strike Go is also under their umbrella.
Yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
they're a large, they're basically a large esports organization within a lot of different games, and yeah, certainly within CS:GO, they're one of the biggest ones as far as the amount of tournaments they have is concerned, and just generally the amount of exposure that they can produce and the amount of viewership that they get.
Yeah, I know I'm pretty certain that they have, or that they cover the World of Warcraft arena tournaments. Um, Overwatch is not. They're not under. Overwatch is not under their umbrella, but it's. Don't think Dota 2 is either. League of Legends might be.
They definitely have Dota events, yeah. That's something that they have, yeah. And I think a big event that probably a lot of people will have heard about are the IEM events, right? The Intel Extreme Masters, where they are partnered with IEM and produce the event basically for Intel and with Intel, and Intel are otherwise partners of them anyway. And Dota, from what I know, is certainly at IEM. Unless I'm completely mistaken.
I'm not quite sure. I thought there was a big MOBA out there that the developers didn't have a lot to do with their pro league scene like Hi-Rez does with Smite, but it wasn't covered under the ESL bracket. Is it is it League of Legends? I'm not sure.
No, like, I don't think. See, in most games, I don't think ESL is actually responsible for esports scenes, right? Maybe in fighting games, because I don't know a lot about fighting games, but in the Valve games specifically, which are Dota 2 and CSGO, right, there are multiple different tournament organizers, and they all hold their own tournaments, and ESL is just one of
I
many,
see.
but they're a
Okay, yeah,
big one of many.
yeah, I understand now. But yeah, it's other than the ESL being managed by ESL, it's gonna be structured into phases. There's a total of 6 phases throughout the year. Each phase has a final, and during some phases, teams that qualify for the international LAN events will. That also includes the split finals involving Europe and North America as well. So the spring split finals, summer split, yada yada yada,
Yeah.
all the way up to Worlds.
Yeah, within the official announcement, it was said that Phase 1 finals would qualify you for Smite Masters, which is probably going to be the spring finals LAN that we're going to have. Phase 4 finals will qualify you for the Smite Summer Finals, which maybe they're going to be holding that under a different tournament organization again, right? Like they did last year with DreamHack. And then the Phase 6 finals obviously will qualify you for the World Championship. So yeah, I think it makes sense, right? The issue with it that I see is you're basically going to have 3 phases, namely phase 2, 3, and 5, that aren't going to be qualifying you for anything, and they're just going to be tournaments where you play against each other somehow and
Like,
play for the
this
prize
is
money
what
there.
there's something I did. There's something I didn't understand, and I don't think it's a part of the announcement. But is each region going to be separate, or are they going to actually play against each other?
Each region is going to be separate. So each region is going to have their own phases from what I've heard.
But see,
So let me check real quick in the announcement.
that's the case, and that runs us back into the same problem we had at Worlds, where a lot of these teams, you know, should not be in the tournaments with the more established, the better United European and North American teams. That's the problem that needs to be fixed, and I don't think this fixes that problem because Southeast Asia and Oceania, maybe they do get better, but competing against other teams in a region that is really lacking pro league talent, how's that going to help them come, Smite Masters or DreamHack? And it doesn't. It's you're not putting them against any better competition, and they can't get better if they're not playing against better competition. But if you go up against the Europe and North America teams where you're just going to get stomped, you can't really get better in that scenario either. So why you have them split into four separate regions, I don't know. It might just be to figure out who's the best in that region, but that doesn't solve the big issue at the international lands.
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely. I think the first way you can go about solving that is changing the formats of the big finals lands that you'll have, right? And just the finals lands that are also involving the NA and EU teams. Because there, it used to be that basically all the international teams got to play at most like 2 sets overall, one against an international one, and once they ran into an NA or EU team, they would just get eliminated because they didn't stand a real chance against these teams in a best of 3 format, right? Or best of 5 format. And I think once you change that, once you start having group stages at these split final lands, I think you give them more of a chance to catch up because you let them play more than just a single set against the NA and EU teams or against each other even. And that's where they can start catching up.
There's also another solution, and that's how they did the Paladins tournaments at HRX, where they have a winner and a losers bracket. The only issue there are Smite games tend to run a lot longer than Paladin games, so having a losers bracket is just going to cause the events to be longer, and maybe that helps the international teams certainly, because they get a chance to play against these other SPL teams that lose in the semifinals in the winners bracket, and it comes down to playing the loser bracket and see that it gives them a second chance to play against SPL level teams. But with the games being so long, I don't think that's going to work either. Really, this global series it's a step in the right direction, of course, but there's still a lot of work to do in these international regions. It's I don't know the solution other than maybe having a separate LAN at the end of every split or every phase where the champions of the international leagues face off each other. Maybe that's a solution to what happens in split 2, 3, and 5. Just put the international champions in a LAN against each other and see who comes out on top.
Yeah, I think that would be a good solution, right? And it would also be a good solution for the finals that we're gonna have, right? That are going to be determining. What is wrong with my speech right now? to be determining who goes to the World Championship, right? Because another point that we complained about, or that we had some hesitation about, was specifically the teams of the weaker regions, right? So, namely Southeast Asia and Oceania, getting a path to the Smite World Championship without facing actually decent opposition, right? And if you have a finals LAN between teams from all regions, right? You unite, let's say, the best two teams from all the four regions, and then you have a finals LAN. You end up in a situation where you can take the best four teams from that and send them to Worlds, instead of sending one of each region instead. And yeah, I would like that. Like, I love LAN events. I think they're a great idea. And I think they're especially a great idea for a scene that is sort of lacking exposure. Because if you let them play on LAN, there will be a bit more hype around that than there is about just a regular online league, especially if Hi-Risk themselves are doing basically nothing to promote the international leagues, right? The most we've had is having them in the season ticket, but they weren't streamed on Hi-Risk TV, or at least most of the time they weren't, and there was no real way for anyone who isn't within the region to really watch them in general, because all the casting that I know of would have been done in the specific language of the region. And okay, maybe that's not true for Oceania, right? Because Oceania, same language. But at least for the other ones, at least for the Latin American region and the Brazilian region, I think that would have been an issue as well. And having finals LAN that would actually be casted in English as well, and in the languages of the respective regions, would have been a way to solve that almost completely.
Well, usually at these LAN events, these international LAN events, like the split finals for the region, not the overall spring Smite Masters finals, but the split finals for each region was usually simulcasted on a different channel in English, or in the language that other than the home region's language. So they've done that. You just got to know where to look for it, or if you can't find it, mute it and just watch it and just figure it out for yourself. Cast it yourself. That's always fun to do. I think, and this is what. You all right?
Yeah, don't worry. I muted myself on stream, but I just swallowed some water. I'll be fine. Just keep talking.
Okay. Well, the thing that, because I'm looking at the beginning, or the dates for each of the phases. The thing that worries me is the final phase. Phase 6 begins August 18th and ends September 9th. That's the Phase 6 finals. If HRX is in January, what are these teams doing for 5 months prior to that? You got plenty of time to have another international phase, not just ending it on September 9th when where HRX doesn't start till January 9th. Like, that's 4 months. My mistake. Not 5, 4 months. And so there's a lot of time where you can add something in there for these international champions to actually play against each other and get, weed out the weaker teams from the better teams.
Yeah, and that's where I'm hopeful that there will be something more to come, right? More to be announced, because there's such a large time frame. And I'm pretty sure in the original announcement for Season 5, they said they were intending to replace Super Regionals, which are regional championships, right, with an actual international LAN at the end of the fall splits for each region, right? And if they do that, then that sort of, well, damn it, sort of opens the door to actually having an international qualifier for the World Championship itself, which would be another interesting thing to have, right?
I think the more lands, the better, especially for the Brazilians and the Latin. I don't know if Latam. I don't know if Oceania and Southeast Asia are going to really be able to benefit from them because they're so far behind and talent wise that that probably they would only get minimum experience from it. But more lands better. I think giving international teams a more chances against the SPL level teams is only good for them. It's good for everybody involved, but it's good for them because they're able to get more than just 3 games or 2 games because it's a best of 3 and they never win. But get them, just get them more against them and see more more than 3 games a split, because honestly 3 games a split at the end of in at DreamHack, that's 3 games against an NA team like E United. You're not going to learn anything from that.
Yeah.
The more games you play, the more you're going to learn. So let them play multiple teams.
Yeah, and I think the best way to make them play multiple teams is to have actual like round robin group stages at these events, because then you will play all the teams in your group, right? And if we're talking about like fall finals or like spring finals, you can invite let me think, what's a good number? Like 4 NA and U teams each, right? Sounds reasonable. Then you also, no, that's way too many. Damn it. You can invite 2 NA and U teams each, then 1 team from all the international regions, right? So you have 8 teams total, put them in 2 groups, let them play. And that's more games. And
let them do like a World Cup qualifying round where you're split into regions, not Europe and not North America, but like A, B, and C, where like A has a team from Brazil, North America, or 2 teams from North America, a team from Oceania, just having them play like a round robin thing, and you can do that with multiple groups, and then let them at the end, have the 2 winners or the top 2 teams from each group move on to the LAN events, like that, and do it like that, where if maybe the Brazilian team gets lucky and it's not the number 1 team from Europe in their bracket, but the number 4 team from Europe in their bracket, and they have a better shot at beating the number 4 team than they do beating somebody like Obey, who might be the number 1 seed, and just have them play multiple games that way, and forego the fall split in the SPL and have these round robin like qualifier stages start like September 14th, a week after the phase 6 is over with.
Yeah, I think another sort of system you could go to where it's a bit easier for underdogs to advance, and where it's still very likely that the best teams will advance in that type of setting, right? And that's even if you do it after the fall split and still hold the fall split, would be the Swiss system. And I'm not sure if you know the Swiss system, how it works. Do you?
Never actually even heard of it until you just said something.
Okay, so the Swiss system, I'll also put it on the video real quick. It basically works. You basically have to have a set amount of teams first of all, and I think the set amount of teams are either 8 or 16. I don't think there's any amount of teams in between you can have. But you're gonna have them separated into 2 seats, 2 types of seats at first, which are gonna be top seats and bottom seats. And you're just gonna have a top seed play a bottom seed. Then that's your round 1. Like your first round is top seeds against bottom seeds. Then you have the winners play against each other, right? You're gonna have like depending on how many teams you have in the system, with 16 teams, you're going to have 8 teams winning. So you're going to have 4 matches between them. Then you're going to have those winners in the third round play again. And you're also going to have the losers play each other in the second round. It's way too complicated to explain, damn it. I'm going to send you the link.
It's double what you're getting. Basically, what you're getting at is it's a double elimination.
It's not double elimination. It depends, like, what factor of elimination it is depends on the amount of teams. With 16 teams, you effectively have triple elimination. Because you're allowed to lose 3 games, and you advance if you have won 3 games, and you get eliminated if you lose 3 games. That's how it works. Right, so if you go, so you have a chance to go 3-0, you have a chance to go 3-1, or you can go 3-2 to advance. That's what you can do, basically. And there are issues with the system. I won't deny that, and there's very clear issues with it. Probably a bit too complex to go into the details of it. But I think for Smite it's a good system, because we have a bit of an issue where it's almost too hard for underdogs to find wins.
Well, having underdogs find wins is not the ultimate goal. It's about finding the best teams for the tournaments at like the at Worlds and stuff at HRX, and not having these teams that just because they won their regions get a free pass when they really shouldn't be at HRX, like the Oceania team. That's the big issue. Finding an underdog win. I think that'll happen over time. Just giving it, like a coin flip. Eventually, you're going to land on something different. Though it might, the more you go, the better chance you have at getting the same thing over and over again, because you got more variables, more attempts at flipping that coin. But sooner or later, it's going to land on the other side, and I think over time, underdogs finding wins will happen. It's finding teams that are good enough to be there is what Smite has a problem with.
Yeah, I think that's part of where the Swiss system has the opportunity to do something. It's going to allow you to play more games, right? Just in general. So if you use it at the less important lands, like the spring finals or like the summer finals, right? It can, first of all, it can actually allow those international teams to have a chance of actually going through to the semifinals, right? Right now, if you're an international team, specifically from OC and Southeast Asia, you're facing the top 2 teams from NA and EU basically in the first round, and you're just going to get knocked out. There's no chance you have, right? This system, a Swiss system, would change that a bit, because here you have at least 2 games to play, right? You can make it 2 best-of-3 sets, so you have 2 best-of-3 sets already guaranteed, at least one of them against an NA and EU team, because they're going to be the top seeds, and probably the other one against one of the other international teams. And if you go on, you're going to be facing an NA and EU team again. So you would be playing like 3 best-of-3s, let's say that. If you're like a LATAM team, would probably play 3 best-of-3s in a Swiss system, if it was using best-of-3s and if it was an 18 tournament. And that's already a lot better, right?
Yes, but that also involves a lot of what we already got. Getting these international teams more chances to compete against these NA and EU teams. That system you're talking about would work, but it's also, we need better teams from Brazil and Oceania than what we've got, and I think that's.
And I think one of the ways you make them better is by allowing them to play against NA and EU teams, right? And this is a system that will allow that more.
And they will get better over time, but we're still going to run into a problem at HRX where it's a world's tournament and we're going to crown a world champion, and the first round for anybody who's playing against maybe Southeast Asia is a free win. It's not a competition that they're, it's a competition that they really have a big chance of losing to.
Yeah, yeah.
And without that Southeast Asian team getting better, and the region as a whole has to get better, that's that's going to continue to be the same no matter how many times how many chances you get to face these teams. Like, you're still going to get the weaker because a weaker team because the region is weaker. The region has to improve.
Yeah.
But we also need if the second place Brazilian team is better than the champions of the Oceania League, that second place Brazilian team should be there and not the champions of the Oceania. Regions, international needs to get rid of regions altogether and just have the teams face off against each other, and then in a separate league of all their own. Like, again, we talked about this prior, but maybe take the top 3 teams or 4 teams from Brazil and have them up against the top 4 teams from Latin America, and do the same thing with Oceania and Southeast Asia, and then the winner of those go on to get condensed into a league of their own, where maybe you have 3 Brazilian teams and 1 Latin American team against 2 Oceania teams and 2 Southeast Asia teams in a league of all their separate. Just let those 8 teams play off against each other.
Yeah,
that's going to guarantee that you have the best of the best out of the international scene.
Yeah, and we talked about the issues that there are with that already, right? Because you can do one of 2 things. You can hold LAN events to have them play against each other, which are you basically invite them somewhere for a weekend, right? And they play a small tournament. Issue there is flights cost a ton, especially if you have to go over the Pacific, right? Because it's a massive fucking ocean covering half the world. And
but that's why
if you do it online, you have the ping issues that are going to be almost unbearable, right?
That's why I paired the 2 regions together, the Brazil and the Latin and Oceania and Southeast Asia.
It would work, right? It would work if we had a region, one of the regions on each side of the Pacific being the weak one, but that's not the case. Both the regions on the eastern side, on the western side of the Pacific, I guess, are the weaker ones, right? Let's just say both regions in the eastern hemisphere are the weak ones, and the ones in the western hemisphere are the strong ones, right? LATAM and Brazil, good. OCE and Southeast Asia, bad. And if you could just do it, that you would determine the 2 best teams out of Southeast Asia and Oceania, and the 2 best teams out of LATAM and Brazil, and sent them to Worlds, that would work if you didn't have the big issue of the first pairing being just way weaker than the second one. Still. So yeah.
That's what I said. I get further into it.
Yeah, that's when you get into logistical issues again, right? Because you're gonna have to hold a LAN event again.
But how
actually
are you throwing around money right now? Yes. Like,
yeah.
They've invested a lot into their esports, the Smite esports side of things already.
Do you know how many exclusive skins we would have to pay for if they wanted to do that?
Okay, but there are some skins that are only available in that region anyway. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but there are some
Oh, I know the skins.
Chinese, dragon black, or Chinese. What was the Chinese? There's
OMG 4, or there used to be. I think there was planned to be OMG 4.
Yeah, OMG Thor, and there was what was the other one? Something
sure.
Dragon. It wasn't some black dragons. It was something dragons, and it was a Freya skin. But they were esports teams in that region with their own skins.
And obviously,
so we already
there's the
have
chalk
that.
skin. There's the chalk skin and the cuckoo skin, which are both have terrible voice packs.
Yeah, but exclusive skins have never been an issue with Smite. I mean, we're up to what 93 gods, probably 94 tomorrow. I'm expecting them to announce another god at 5.2. We'll see. But yeah, like
Yeah.
having these exclusive skins is not an issue. I mean, they're already throwing money around at this thing as it is. Why not just a little bit more to have know for a fact that your international teams you're bringing to HRX are the best ones that you have, and not some weaker team from Southeast Asia that's only played like 3 legitimate matches in their entire region.
Yeah. See, if I had to design the Smite esports or just the Smite esports qualifying process for the international teams to the World Championship, or just their entire Season 5, right? I think if you take what we have now as a basis, you can do things pretty well, right? So, first phase, right? Phase 1, the one thing that you need to do is make Smite Masters like a tournament system where they actually get to play against NA and EU teams. So you have 8 teams there, for example. You use the Swiss system. You use it all best of threes. You're probably gonna have LATAM and Brazil play 2 best of threes against NA and EU. They can learn a ton from that. Can improve. Can carry that back into their own regions. Can make these regions stronger, right? So that is one change you need to make, sort of, in my opinion. Then phase 2, absolutely think phase 2 finals, you can hold a LAN event, right? And that's something I would do. After the phase 2 finals, I would make an international finals LAN. Let's say what's a nice place in Brazil?
Rio's good. There's a few things.
Probably one that's a bit less expensive than Rio. Because I imagine Rio's quite expensive.
There are a few things further down south.
Let's just say
further down south along the coastline.
Let's just say you have a LAN event in Recife, and you invite the top 2 teams from each region, and that's your phase 2 finals LAN, right? International finals LAN. Phase 3, you do the same thing again, but now you do it in a different region. Now you do it in OCE, for example. Phase 4, you have invitations to summer finals. Again, you do a Swiss system tournament there, where again the better regions get to play 2 best of 3s against NA and EU, and can learn from that again. And if one of the other international regions has improved, right? If Southeast Asia has improved because they're still a new region, then they have a chance to get the same thing. Then phase 5. Did I skip a phase? I might have, yeah. Phase 5, you hold another LAN event, maybe this time in Southeast Asia or maybe in Latin America, and it's all good, basically. And then phase 6, you can do the same thing again even. You can do phase 6 LAN in LATAM and Southeast Asia, and you can determine the best 4 teams from the international regions there, and then you can send those to the World Championship. And then at the World Championship, we use a similar format to what we had this year, right? Because I don't think there's anything drastically wrong with the format we had.
I would change the best of 1s to best of 3s and have everybody, not eliminating, no teams be eliminated on day 1, but have a best of 3 instead of the best of 1s.
Yeah, that would work as well. Or you could just do round robin group stages as well, right? So you would split the teams into 2 groups of. You could do groups of 5 if you want to include the top seeds from NA and the EU, or you could just do groups of 4 if you don't want to include them. Then you have them play round robin, and then the best 3 or 4 advance into the quarterfinals. Sounds pretty simple. And those groups would basically just be for seeding, right? Seeding and learning, which would be good for the international teams again. And yeah, basically that's like my perfect system now. What do you think?
I mean, we can throw ideas out there all day long if we wanted to. But we are, we try to keep shorts under an hour, so we can't really do that. But I think the perfect system is, doesn't really exist unless you have regions getting better.
Yeah. And I think the closest thing to a perfect system that you can then make right now where regions aren't better is one where you try to give them a chance to get better, right? And I think that's what my system does.
Well, it's better than what they have set up already. I don't like the system. It is the right step in the right direction, but it's not the right system. We're still going to, it doesn't solve any of the issues that we've had before. Um, More exposure will help, but exposure would only create fan excitement for a team. It's not really making the team any better. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's a long. I think the global series is a long way off of being where it needs to be, and
Yeah.
hopefully season 5 they figure some stuff out, and season 6 is better. But there's still a lot of work to be done on the international scene of things, or the international scene of Smite, and it's going to be fun to watch, at least because we'll know these teams and these players better than what we usually do.
Yeah. So because like the remaining news are basically that it's also going to be broadcast by Hi-Res somehow. That was part of the official announcement. I'm not entirely sure where they're going to be doing it right now because it looks like there will be an overlap between it and the Challenger Cup, right? Oh no, it and
No,
the SPL basically.
yeah, it'll be an overlap with the SPL. I would imagine when SPL starts is when they'll stop broadcasting those. It doesn't say it's going to be broadcast by high-res talent like Hindu Manor, Aggro, or F Dot.
Yeah, I could imagine that would solve another small issue that people are having with season 5, right? That basically, as a freelance caster for Smite, you can no longer, and you no longer have really anything to cast because the Challenger Cup's now going to be cast by the Hi-Res team as well. If you're giving them these tournaments and these leagues, then they're still going to have something available to them. Issue is obviously going to be that the players in there are going to be largely unknown. But yeah, I think that's part of the exposure that we were talking about, which is a good thing, obviously. Giving them more exposure helps people get a bit more interest in it, and if people are interested in the scene, right, in forming scenes, then that can lead to more money being invested into those scenes as well, which would benefit the players there pretty heavily.
Yeah, but it also screws over Brazil and Southeast Asia because those are the European days, and those are the Tuesdays and Thursdays are the EU days, and their broadcast times start at 1 p.m. Eastern time. That's 2 hours after Brazil and Southeast Asia start broadcast on higher STD. Oceania and Latin America, though, are on NA days. So their broadcast starts at 11 a.m. Eastern time, like the other ones. But North America doesn't start till 5 p.m. Eastern time. So there's a lot more of a window there for Oceania and Latin America to get more exposure than Brazil and Southeast Asia.
Yeah, now that I think about it, actually, instead of being able to watch NASPL now, I'm going to be able to watch Oceania and Latin America.
Oh, yay for you.
Yay. My favorite thing to do is watch the Aussies play Smite and the ya-ya-yas play Smite. Yeah, that second part was probably a bit racist. Let's ignore it.
I won't touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, anyway, the last thing that was announced in regards to this was the pricing structure for the entire thing. And main points are it's going to be 10k per region per phase, which adds up to 60k obviously for the entire thing, times 4 or 5. I'm not entirely sure how they're going to be handling LATAM because it's technically split between north and south, right?
Well, yeah, it also going to be 8 teams because they have listed first through 8th place in the pricing. So I don't know if Latin America North and Latin America South are both going to send 4 teams, or if just the lower 8 teams aren't going to get paid anything or something. I wouldn't imagine that would be the case, but
yeah, I think the thing here is right. It's quite a lot of prize money just overall, and what we didn't mention actually, as far as the phases are concerned, is that all phases are going to consist of 4 weeks of play, and there's going to be open brackets for the first 3 weeks of play, where 8 teams total will qualify out of them to the finals, and the teams in the finals are going to be the ones earning the prize money, obviously.
Yeah.
So depending on how they're going to handle it for LATAM, if they're going to be having a north and a south and held separately, right? LATAM's basically going to have double the prize money of every other region, which would be a bit funny as well. But yeah, let's not question that.
Which that's a little a little weird to have North and South, or LATAM split into North and South, because
it's always been that way.
They're all basically in the same time zone. So splitting them in North and South because of different times, that makes no sense.
I think the issue here is ping again, right? Because South America's pretty fucking massive.
Oh no, it's not. South America, it's not that's not.
And you have teams from Mexico in the North region, from what I know.
It's South America, but it's Latin America, and that's South
pretty
America
big.
Really preferred Latin America,
But if you include Middle America and Mexico in Latin America, it's a pretty big region. It's from one end to the other, it's the biggest region in Smite, I think.
Yeah, it would be pretty large, but the time zones are not like that. You're still in the same time zone.
Yeah,
so.
But by the same logic, Sabo, you could have NA and South and LATAM North and South all in the same region because they're all in the same time zone too. Or in similar time zones.
Brazil's 3 hours ahead of Atlanta, so there's that. That's a different time zone. Yeah. Rio is not in the same time zone as Atlanta.
Yeah, I thought not in the same, but 3 hours? Is that actually true?
It's either 2 or 3. I think it's 3. I could be wrong.
Maybe it's just 3 because they don't have daylight saving time. Right? I would imagine they don't. Oh yeah, Brazil's,
but if you're
Brazil's in GMT -3, and the Eastern United States are in -5, so it's 2 hours.
It's 2 hours.
3 in summer probably.
Well, it's 2 hours, but if you're breaking it down into regions like that, where North America, you got Latin, you got Brazil. If you're breaking them down into regions, okay. But when you break it further down into whatever Latin was broken down to, time differences would not make a whole lot of sense. And that's one of the that's the reason why I don't understand why it's North and South, because North and South time zones don't run north to south. Time zones run east to west.
Yeah.
And if you're in basically the same time zone, then why are you split in the different regions?
Again, it's ping issues from what I know, because it's a big region, right? If your servers for the northern region are somewhere in Panama, let's say, people from the very bottom or the very tip of Argentina, right, all the way down near the South Pole almost, are going to have terrible ping to those servers. And if you have the servers somewhere in Bolivia, everyone's just gonna have terrible ping, including especially the Mexicans. So I see the issue if your main sort of population centers in the regions sort of being at the edges of them, because Mexico's probably the biggest one in the northern one, and I can see Argentina being the biggest one in the southern one. So
Well,
that
then they need
complicates
to
things.
they need to be split into two separate regions instead of one big regions with two different divisions. Have it Middle America and South America minus Brazil. Brazil's already got their own league. So keep them separate, and then have the rest of South America play in the South American League, and just have the Middle America region as well, and have it split that way. Because having teams from like northern Mexico face off against teams in southern Argentina,
Yeah, but
that's
that only happens on
terrible.
LAN, right? At least, so if they keep it separate, right, that's only going to happen on LAN. And on LAN, it's not an issue. On LAN, ping's not an issue. Language is still the same. Works. You get what I'm saying?
Are these in the phases? Are these?
Again, I'm assuming right now that in the
Uh,
phases, you're going to have them separate as well. Because otherwise, everything that we just talked about would be pretty irrelevant.
I think I think the question is: are these finals, these phase finals, are they going to be on land?
I don't think so.
And so you run into that. You run into that in Latinum, where if they're not on land, you got somebody, maybe a northern Mexico team against a southern Argentina team, where the ping
Not
is
if they're
just.
separate. Right, if you
But
have
it doesn't.
if you have two
They have.
finals for LATAM, one LATAM North and one LATAM South, then it's not an issue. They're just gonna have double the prize money,
Then
which
you have
is a bit of
five
an issue.
regions. Then you have 5 regions. That's what we were getting at.
Yeah, you would have 5 regions for anything but Worlds, right? Because for Worlds, you're still only gonna have one LATAM team qualify. We only had one LATAM team at Worlds last year, and I'm not even sure which part of LATAM they were from, to be honest. But yeah, you basically
So
have
you would
5 regions.
you would spend basically the entire season with 5 regions, 5 international regions, and then when it's time for HRX, you go down to 4. I mean, that makes 0 sense. Other than placing them in tournament brackets easier.
Yeah.
But you're basically cutting out an entire region because you went from 5 down to 4 for some stupid reason.
Well, you see, the team from LATAM, it's still representing the entirety of Latin America, right? Not just their respective half of it.
Yeah,
So you
I'm
still have
sure.
representation there.
I'm sure the Colombian team's still represented by the Puerto Rican team.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Sure,
how the
that's a
systems
thing.
work. That's how the systems always work, though. I'm pretty sure, at least in Season 2, from
And
Season
I'm
2
telling you,
onward, you had the separation.
I'm telling you, that's stupid.
Yeah, maybe.
If you're going to have them split into Latinum North and Latinum South, then just have it 5 regions and have 5 teams show up, 5 international teams show up for HRX instead of just the 4.
You know what's stupid? Portugal being in a different time zone than Spain.
Space.
Yeah,
Everything's
than
in a
Spain.
different time zone than space.
Yeah, but Portugal being in a different time zone than Spain makes no sense. Pretty sure the westernmost point of Spain is further west than the westernmost point of Portugal.
Well, I live in Kentucky, and in Lexington, which is in the eastern part of Kentucky, that's an hour ahead of where I'm at, which is in western Kentucky. So you're talking country wise, and I'm talking state wise. There's a difference just going from the eastern part of my state to the western part of my state.
Okay, let's just. Yeah, well, Kentucky's a weird state. You look like a chicken leg, basically. But anyway, right? Let's just play the
KFC, that's
citizen,
why
right?
we're famous, buddy.
So Spain,
Thank you, Frankie.
Spain is one time zone further east than the United Kingdom, even though the United Kingdom doesn't reach as far west as Spain. Makes no sense. Anyway, time zones are weird. Let's move on. Is there anything else we had to say about the entire Global Series thing? I don't think so.
It just needs to be fixed better than what it is, but that's it.
Yeah. And obviously, something worth mentioning as well, because the top teams are going to be going to spring and summer finals, they're also going to be getting more prize money there as well. Which is something Harris have mentioned as well, so I'm going to mention it as well.
Yeah, you got to think of the minor league being, and having the same effect that minor league would have. The top of the minor league gets invited to these LAN events. They get extra money for being at the LAN.
See, at that point, I'm pretty sure we could get 16 teams there, and we could actually have a Swiss system with 16 teams. But that's just food for thought. Anyway, something else we quickly want to mention as well is some podcast-related news. Now that we've sort of wrapped up the main topic. And obviously, as we already talked about last week, I'm not sure if it was on the recording actually. But since the SPL dates are going to be at different dates right now in Season 5, and starting on Tuesday, the actual SPL week, we're going to be moving the date for the podcast as well to accommodate that. That's one reason why we're doing it. The other reason is because it's going to be also way easier to schedule it between me and Sabo. Especially now that circumstances for both of us have sort of changed. And yeah, it's going to be on Saturday now. Because we can. Which would be awesome.
To make a long story short, there will not be an episode next Tuesday, which is the 13th. Instead, it'll be on the 17th, which is next Saturday.
Yes.
So that's when that will all begin.
Yep.
Name change is definitely going to be happening. We're not sure what we're going to call it yet. But yeah, a lot of things have changed in our personal lives, and with the SPL now being weekdays instead of weekends, it lines up better if we do it on Saturday instead of on Tuesday afternoons, Tuesday nights. Again, it's something that works out for both of us, and work schedules, since we now both have paying jobs. It's just going to be better to do it on Saturdays. And that's why we're moving it to Saturdays.
Yeah. And yeah, as far as the name goes, the reason I think we're still undecided what we're going to call it is because if High-Risk keeps shifting around the days, then we don't always want to have to change our name to sort of reflect that. So we might come up with a fairly different name for the podcast as well. So that we won't always have to change it.
Might be Saturday nights. Might one split, and then the next split be like Thursday nights mine, or Thursday afternoons mine, or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's always been afternoon for you, so there's that. And yeah.
We will also be doing live streams every now and then.
Yeah, at least we're looking into it. Like, I think it should definitely be possible, and if we can manage to do it, then we're going to be doing it, basically, because that would be awesome to have the entire show live instead of pre-recorded. Could be more interactive and just generally more fun.
yeah, maybe some prizes given out, gym packets or something. Or
Yeah,
let's see.
now that we're earning money, we can start spending that money on trying to bribe our viewers.
There's 800 gems, $15.
Yeah.
Nah, not 800 gems. You'll probably get 200 gems if you're lucky. But still, 200 gems is 200 gems.
Yeah, you don't complain
Show
about
up.
free gems.
Show
Well, I
up.
guess the Smite player base does.
Honestly, it's not just the Smite player base, but all gaming communities that just complain about everything. So
Yeah, it's fair enough. Anyway, that's stuff we're very excited about. And yeah, you're going to be seeing us next Saturday, which isn't this Saturday in this week, but the one after, as Sable already mentioned.
yeah, the 17th, not the 10th.
Yes, and we will make everything work, basically. And yeah.
We thought we might have to go away, but we don't have to go away.
Yeah, that's the big news. That's the best piece of news, sort of, is that we're actually going to be keeping
Still
this
be able to
podcast
do
going.
this.
Yeah. So yeah, I think
We
that's
might
all.
suck, but it's fun. So
Yeah.
we might be bad, but we enjoy what we're doing. So whatever.
Yeah, that's
Love
the most
us.
important
That's a
part.
command.
Anyway,
Love us.
yeah, please do. Anyway, I think that's all we have for this week. Like, it's already a pretty long episode for a TNS short by TNS short standards. So this is going to be it for this week. Like, comment, subscribe, and follow. You know how it all works. I don't need to explain it. And thank you all for watching. And as always, good night. Good smite.